Well, it's been a while since I upgraded my Jackson JS11 to the Vega Trem, and at that time I had bought a 2-point, which is what goes on that because it had a 2-point tremolo on it. But I also bought a 4-point, which would go on a Stratocaster style guitar with the 6 screws on the tremolo. I just hadn't decided which guitar to put it on until now. Welcome back, I'm Tony, and spoiler alert, yeah, I'm a huge fan of Vega Trem. I personally think it might be the best tremolo that's out there. It's certainly the best tremolo that I've tried. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a hater on my Floyd Roses. I've got several of them. I really enjoy them, but until I had tried the Vega Trem, I thought that was the gold standard, and maybe it still is for some. But at NAMM 2025, I tried a Vega Trem for the first time and said, oh my God, I have to have one of these. They're so expressive, they're so fluid, they are just so well made, they are minimal, they look great. You don't have to modify your guitar if you've got a Strat-style guitar, whether it's got the 2 posts or the 6 screws. And the best part about it is it stays in tune and it doesn't need a locking nut to do so. And when I say more expressive than my Floyd Roses, yeah, the Floyd Rose is great for dive bombs, little flutters, and some pull-ups and that kind of stuff, but this thing it's just so smooth, buttery smooth, that back and forth, the up and down, it's just amazing. And personally, I love Vega Trem, and I think my next one is gonna be for the Telecaster. It's going to go on this one right here. So this is very nice, Firefly, which I do have a review for. Now, when trying to decide which guitar I was going to put it on, I thought about putting it on this made in Mexico Fender Stratocaster, and I said, you know what? Here's the thing. In the spirit of the last video, I upgraded the Jackson JS11, which was a $160 guitar, and I put a $250 tremolo on it. Yeah, that sounds crazy, kind of like putting nice rims and wheels on a hoopty, but no, here's my thinking, okay? Because a lot of us are on budgets, and you might buy a budget guitar because that's what you can afford, and as you move along, you're like, ooh, I'd like to upgrade this, or maybe you buy a budget guitar because you know that you'd like to put a Vega Trem on it and stuff, and you don't want to buy a $500 guitar and spend another $250. I think you get the point. So the guitar that I put it on is this right here. Yes, the Fender Squier Debut series. It's a Stratocaster with HSS, humbucker single. I have reviewed this here on the channel. It's actually a surprisingly fantastic guitar that I paid $119 for, and I think now on Amazon it's selling for $149. Couple of challenges with this one because it's thinner than a standard Stratocaster, and I was like, well, you know, I don't even know if the measurements work out, but I'm just going to go for it. Right? And that's exactly what I did. So I'll do a little bit of install on this. I did another video where I showed the full install from beginning to end, and that was for the 2-point. The only difference is that you have 4 screws instead of 2, basically. So if you'd like to watch that video, that's popping up right here, and it'll give you the full rundown on it. I filmed the installation yesterday. I'm pretty sure I got quite a bit of it, so we'll show you that in just a minute. So I thought I'd share this from their website, the VT1 Ultratrem, the Stratocaster Tremolo Reinvented. You wanted a floating bridge that did not force you to drill into or modify your beloved ST guitar, so we did it. You desired a vibrato bridge that did not stick out any more than the original bridge, and here it is. You imagined total freedom of movement and a whammy bar that never caused bother, and here it is. You fantasized about a tremolo free of unwanted noises, and now that dream has come true. You wanted to get rid of the hassle of microtuners, you have it. So when you start looking at Floyd Roses, there are a ton of choices out there. There's licensed ones, there's unlicensed ones, there's even 5 versions, I think, 4 or 5 versions of the actual Floyd Rose from Floyd Rose. Problem is, most of them don't have stainless steel parts, the knife edges get weak and they don't hold tune, and they're just troublesome, right? Well, the Vega Trem is made in Europe, not China, with the same materials, quality, process, and precision control used in the manufacturing of surgical materials. This is the only way to offer you an unbeatable 2 years warranty. Designing the VT2, we took in serious account the materials we used for the system, a fulcrum and a 4mm plate made of marine stainless steel 316 and brass saddles. In fact, if you haven't watched my video of the install on the JS11, I do recommend that you watch that. Well, let's go ahead and see what I got from my install stuff yesterday. Then we'll give you a little demo and I'll give you my final impressions. All right, I've already done a couple of things to this. A nice roller string retainer here from Geiker, and we've also got some Geiker locking tuners on here. Yep, so I got all that done, and well, it's time to get this tremolo going here. I also gave the neck a nice oiling and rubbed all that out. So, oh yeah, she's looking good. So like I said, I might not show you every single step with this one because I've already done an install video and it's basically the same thing. The difference is that the other one had the 2-point. So basically you just took off the other tremolo, took out the studs, put the new plate on where the studs were, And yeah, it just went from there. On this one though, we have 6 screws on this old one, and this is going to take up 4 of those screw holes there. So we'll just remove this. And those screws are in there really good. Yeah, so I'll just go down the line and remove all of those. So we've got our standard hardware here for installing it. And inside of the package, just like the other one, you have low tension, you have extra low tension, medium tension, and high tension. And the little guide here tells you that the system works best with 2 springs as a rule. They correspond to different string gauges. And then they tell you which tension corresponds to, basically which set of strings. So I use 9s, so I'm going to use low tension. Yeah, basically this setup is the same as the 2-point that I installed on the white Jackson, just that you have the 6 holes and you have a different base. So let's see inside of the standard bag here. Just going to dump it out on that. All right, so that's what you're going to get with it. You've got 4 screws and 2 Allen wrenches, and you're going to place this on there, and you'll see you can get the holes to line up pretty well. All right, so we're just going to put the screws in those, and I'm not going to tighten them all the way down. I'm just going to get them in there. Now I keep this lip balm around here so that I can get a little bit of it on the threads. Makes it a little bit easier to thread it in there, and it also makes it easier to get it out if you need to. These are some long screws. So basically, I'm just going to put all 4 of these in there, okay? We'll come back after I get that. And that's why I don't tighten them down at first. I just get 3 of them in there. Then I want to make sure that everything looks as centered as possible. Then we'll tighten them down. Like so. This is a Debut Squier Telecaster. That means it's thinner. So my question is this going to fit? Just drop this in here. What I'm talking about is from the back. I'm not exactly sure. Well, we're going to just put it together and find out, won't we, right? Now what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take these little set screws right here that are for your springs. I'm going to move them back to this side. And the reason for that is because it's kind of hard to get to them underneath the springs. I just put them over on this side. And for a tip, if you set this thing down, then you can get more of a straight angle because these holes are sort of angled. There we go. So I took them from this side, put them to this side, because when you put your spring in here, you're going to want to tighten that. And if it's coming from this side, it's just a little bit hard to twist it. So that's why I do that. Okay, so right under here and right under there are 2 little divots where these little blades will stick into those. Okay, so we just drop her in like that, kind of get it lined up, and that's where it's going to sit. And boy, it does look like that's going to be just a little bit past the edge of this guitar. I'm going to put it together and we're going to see how it goes, right? Because one of my things, I wanted to see if this would work on a budget guitar like this. We'll take our springs and we're going to go ahead and put those in there. Just like that. That's where they suggest that they go. And then we will tighten up these set screws. Now that keeps that spring locked in its position, which is actually really cool. Helps with your tuning stability and everything else. And we're going to feed it through. Well, at least on the previous one I did, I was able to just pull this through. There we go. Just like that. Backing off the screws to the claw so that I can get these springs on there properly. And we'll be using that claw and the string tension later on to balance everything out. All right, we've got the springs on the claw now. I'm going to let the tension off a little bit more on these springs. One thing I did notice is that those screws from the Fulcrum, they're longer than what was in here. And that, again, this is one of the things I wanted to test with this guitar. Is it really that budget that you can't put something nice on here? But we'll see how it all comes out. But yeah, I've got my springs on here, and we're going to need some strings. And in this case, going to be going with my favorites, Cleartone. These are 9 through 46 treated strings. They're nickel plated. These are really nice strings, 36% louder. They're also designed to give players up to 5 times the lifespan of untreated strings. So, very cool. Another thing that's nice is that these things are labeled with the colors, so that makes it real easy to figure out what you're trying to install. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the high and low E strings. I'm going to put them on there, kind of put some tension on those, and then we'll go from there. And you've got 6 holes in the back of this. That's where they go. I'm going to run that up to the top. I'll put the high E string on there, and that will get it seated into its position for the blades. But before we do that, I'm going to put some of this Big Ben's nut sauce on the nut. That definitely helps to keep everything nice and clean and smooth, and it helps with your tuning as well. So we just put a little bit of that on there on the applicator. And we just put it right into the nut slot. And I'll repeat. All right, I've got this string on here real loose. One thing you might want to do is go ahead and put that bar on, because that'll help you to jostle it where it needs to go when you need to get it into position. All right, so I've got both E strings on here, and I used this to just make sure that we were getting the flex both ways. And see, it just came out of the, I actually use this to kind of jostle it so that it gets into the slots. But yeah, we'll tighten up those 2 strings and put the rest of the strings on here and see how it goes. So a couple of things right off the bat. You can definitely see that this is sticking up over the body of the guitar. I don't have the plate on the back here. So what I can do is I can make a gasket to go around this, raise that plate up a little bit, and I'll probably have to cut a little bit more of a hole out of the plate in order for it to all fit in there. But I really like this guitar and I really want this to work, so I went ahead with installing it anyways, and I think it's just worked out really, really great. I just really love the Vega Trem, and if it's good enough for Dweezil Zappa and one of my all-time favorites, Alex Lifeson, is good enough for me. Once again, I did put locking tuners on here and a little roller thing here for the string retainer. And you know what? That really pays off when you're talking about a tremolo that doesn't have a locking nut, because every time you release, every time you pull down or push down on your tremolo, you're releasing pressure on the strings, and so that allows them to uncoil. When you have locking ones, I don't know if you can really see, but it's not wrapped all the way around the post. Yeah, it's not wrapped around the post multiple times, so it won't unwrap. And it's a lot easier to change your strings. No locking nut though, boy, I tell you what, it gives you a lot of versatility, because if I wanted to go to drop D, I could just tune it to drop D. It's not a problem. Don't have to worry about your little fine tuners down here, because you go right up here to tune it. So again, I really love my Floyd Roses, but this is just altogether different. My only issue is that these grub screws right here, they're not that strong of metal. I would love to see them be a stronger metal, because I may have stripped out a couple of them on these 2 strings right here. The action actually improved on this guitar after I installed this on here, to the point where these 2 strings right here, they're almost laying on the frets. I don't have any dead spots, but yeah, I could raise those up a little bit. And I'll try to do that next time I change the strings, because you really don't want to adjust those things under pressure or under tension, because those little grub screws and Allen wrenches, they're so small. They don't really have a lot of strength to them. And last, one of the most important things is to get it actually completely level. From this plate right here to the end of this, it should be level, and that is that's about as level as it's going to get. That's why I didn't really want to mess with it again and take the strings off to try to adjust those last 2. I'll probably have to hit up Vega Trem and see if I can get some new screws for those. Yeah, pretty much user error in that situation. But I'm happy to say that it's working really, really good. And it stayed in tune. I mean, you could really abuse this thing. So yeah, even after all that, yep, stays in tune, and that is fantastic. Man, this thing is just so nice. Now, it probably matters that I put some Big Ben's nut sauce on the nut, because that helps to keep that lubed, no binding or anything like that. But if you've got your nut filed properly and everything is nice and lubricated up there, that sounds funny. Got to lubricate your nut. But if you have all that going on, this thing stays in tune amazingly. It is just so freaking buttery smooth. It's hard to describe. It's a full, real floating tremolo that is actually pretty easy to set up and super easy to install. So I don't have any complaints about that. The only complaint I have is that these little set screws, these grub screws that you use to adjust the height of your saddles, they're just, I don't know, they seem weak, and I think I've stripped 2 of these out already, so I'm gonna have to take a little bit of time and work on that. The action's a little bit lower than I like it to be. It almost buzzes on some of the these 2 strings right here, but you know, aside from that, and they have a 2-year warranty, so I'm sure I can get those screws replaced. I would like to see Vega Trem upgrade those screws though to titanium or something that would make them stronger, because those little tiny grub screws are always a problem. But man, aside from that, I have absolutely no complaints, and I'll work on this back here. I don't know exactly what I'll do. I'll probably just go ahead and make some kind of a gasket around here, like I said. I did buy some rubber washers so I could raise the plate a little bit, but you know, I'm gonna find the perfect solution for it, but man, I love it. And if I don't find that perfect solution, well, maybe I'll move it to another guitar. But for now, oh man, I just made this $119 guitar into a badass. That's all I could say. Well, it was $119. I think it's up to $150 now on Amazon. Like I say, I do have a review for that if you want to watch that. I'll put a link down in the description where you can find that guitar. And I'll put links down in the description for Vega Trem so you can find that out. Yeah, I'm really looking forward. I really want to. They're sold out right now on their website. But they make a Telecaster one that basically uses these holes right here. A new thing goes in there with a spring that goes between that, and you've got a tremolo on a Telecaster. So I'll be watching stock on the website. If they get back in stock, maybe we'll pick one up. So that is another Vega Trem upgrade, and this time to my Fender Debut Squier Stratocaster. That's a mouthful. And I absolutely love these tremolos. Hey, I want to thank you so much for your support here on the channel. Likes, comments, shares, subscriptions, always very important to my channel. So if you like what you see, hit that thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, there is a red subscribe button down there and a notification bell. Click both of those. You'll get notifications when I upload new videos. I also have a thanks button down below this video. If you're so inclined, want to toss a couple bucks my way. It is not inexpensive to run these channels. I can attest to that. Go ahead and click that and send whatever you'd like to send. Either way, I'm just really stoked that you're here. It's awesome. Please leave a comment down below this video. And that's going to do it for this episode. We'll catch you next time on the Vapor Trail channel.